And again, a lot of those girls too have had some of those soft tissue injuries and they've been through rehab and they've gone through the gambit. And it's almost like, but if we're seeing the injury rates at the rates that we're seeing them and we're not adjusting our behavior, are we just going to pray against bad luck, or are we going to recognize what's going on and maybe adjust, our plan of attack to improve performance? But again, I believe we're a very reactive society that says, hey, let's just follow the crowd and do what everybody else is doing. Let's try to escape around this whole injury thing.
These strength coaches at the D1 level are doing. It's just the fundamentals of strength and power and speed. We've had Mallory on, we've had the women's soccer Mississippi State strength coach on, we've had Stanford, UNC, we've had like the big dog strength
Right.
coaches on, and they're doing your pull-ups,
Yeah.
your hex bar deadlifts, slowly progressing the weight over time, not doing anything crazy. Yeah, it's just so interesting. Parents are set on that like D1 dream, but all
Right.
the training they're doing is the exact opposite of what the girl's going to
Yeah.
experience in college. Ray, welcome to the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. I've seen a lot of your stuff and I'm excited to sit down and chat with you.
I love your brutal honesty on social media on everything youth training and what true development really is. And I actually discovered your account through Mallory, the strength coach at Auburn women's soccer. And I was looking at all your posts. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is speaking the hard truth to sports parents that a lot of people don't really want to hear, but they need to hear it because there's so much nonsense out there and kids are not developing, they're not becoming good athletes, they're not staying healthy, and they're not developing into confident human beings. And we'll talk about confidence as well too and how we really build that because I love your take on that as well. So maybe can you just let us know where you're located because I'm trying to let my audience know where amazing strength coaches for kids are in the country so that they can find someone in their area.
Absolutely. So I've been doing this is our 16th year now, 2026, and we're in Marietta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. So a big soccer hotbed for sure.
And do you work with athletes of all sports, all ages, or do you have an age cutoff?
Absolutely. So we start, usually I start the girls usually as young as 7 or 8, sometimes because the boys are a little bit, later developers. I might start them 9 or 10, but we do run the gambit of all different sports. But I would say on the female side, the soccer lacrosse demographic is probably our primary. And then on the male side, we'll get into some of the baseball, lacrosse as well. But yeah, we've ran everybody from dancers, gymnasts, fencers, and I really think as much as I was a football guy back in the day, and it's like in the early 2000s, strength and conditioning was this like it's for the football players that are trying to bulk up and bench press 400 pounds. But then you see like how underserved a lot of other demographics are, and it was like, why am I going to sit here and pigeonhole myself into football only when those are the guys that have all the resources and the training and school and everything when there's 90% of the other side of the scene that are underserved. So we really transitioned into, you know, all sports to try to serve and fill those gaps that are obviously missing in a lot of kids beyond, football.
Yeah. And I love watching some of the videos on your social media with what your athletes are doing. You have a rock climbing wall in your gym as well. I think that's
Yes.
incredible for so many reasons. You're doing traditional lifts to really gain strength and then play based stuff. I think it's incredible. And I actually saw you say that you started to train like younger athletes again because originally you were mainly doing older because you
Right.
just feel young kids should just play and go to the park. But why did you start training younger athletes again? Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Freelap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Freelap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Freelap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing. Hi, guys. Before we get back into the episode, I have a very special announcement from our sponsor, Simply Faster. The free lap timing system will be on sale for 10% off from now until February 20th, 2026. So if you're listening to this, it is now January 2026. The discount will take place until February 20th, 2026. So you have a couple of weeks to get it for a 10% discount, and the code is Erica10. I'll leave the discount code in the caption below. The free lap rarely goes on sale, so take advantage of this while you can. And let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, again, I try to keep everything in between the lines. A lot of times too, in this, ultra competitive world we're living in, I would have a lot of like really, really young parents, or excuse me, young parents of young kids that were trying to get them involved in training. And it was almost like I was, trying to make it fun and play based, like you're mentioning, but it was like they wanted their kid to be trained like the pros, and like I was some crazy guy for like wanting to train them like the kid that they are. And I could just see this disdain in some of these kids, to where it was like they would show up because their dad was asking them to go, and they're moping around and sitting around, and it's like, what am I doing by collecting a check to sit here and babysit a kid who doesn't want to be here, when in my opinion he should be out on the monkey bars swinging and playing and running around and not having this structure. But then it kind of got to a point, and this is years ago, that I started to kind of influence where I'm at now with a lot of this stuff, was like the parents are going to want to seek these next quote edges for their kids. And if not me, who? If they're going to go down the road and be duped by Sally Sue doing a bunch of nonsense, or I can take, fundamental progressions and imply those into the kids and put them in an environment where they're having fun and they enjoy doing it. I would rather try to do it right than let them go to somebody else who's going to do it wrong, if that makes sense. So it really just kind of, brought me full circle, so to speak, so that I could definitely focus on what they need. Yes, there's structure, obvious, and I don't hate structure totally, but it's like the right structure. A lot of times we like to train kids like mini adults, when mentally, physically, emotionally, like that's not what they are. They're children, with brains that are freaking like putty, and we're going to sit here and model what the professional baseball player doing, or on the soccer side, there's a 14-year-old in the NWSL, like this is what she did. Well, it's like there's so many reasons why I disagree with that, and like that's the 1% of the 1%, but we fly to that narrative of the outlier, and it's like most people aren't that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's so interesting you mentioned how kids just would show up moping around, and those are the kids where the parent is pushing the training and it's seen as an obligation for them. But, if us performance coaches can really show them that training can be fun and engaging and they can explore things, it's so needed now more than ever. And I took off for the past 2 years from working with my under 12-year-olds. I used to do summer camps where I did like ages 9 to 11 at the youngest, and we would do tag and tug of war and
Right,
hopscotch and all the fun games that build rhythm, coordination, and speed, as you know. But
right.
parents don't know that. And I really dealt with some tough parents who, when I would explain it, it just went in one ear and out the other. And I kind of gave up for a few years and had to really take off from it. But now I'm getting back into it because I'm like, you know what? There's so much more of a need now than ever, because kids are not creative anymore. Kids can't problem solve. I see a lot of soccer players, they lack the IQ and the anticipation of play. So for their brains, it's so valuable. And then with the overuse injuries happening now, it's just they need that variety. So I'm getting back into it, and
Love it.
people are like, yeah, you got to keep doing it, because like don't get discouraged with the parents. I'm like, okay, like I will pick up the phone when an 8-year-old or 9-year-old parent calls.
For sure, for sure. I had a parent one time, and this has happened actually a couple times. We would do different games like you're talking about. We're playing spike ball or even touch football and these different things. And I had a dad, we're not paying you to just play games with the kids. They can do that in the yard. And I said, sure, but are they doing that, sir? And he's, well, no, and it's like, well, all right. So now am I the bad guy because I'm filling a bucket that maybe you and I had filled in our childhood, playing on the playground and running around and rec and pickup games? But whether we like it or dislike it, to your point earlier, they're not getting this. And just because they're not getting it doesn't mean that we can just skip over it. Like, oh, we'll just scooch over this part of the developmental side. I would rather, if, and again, I do this for a living, but if my child wasn't getting the fundamental play that you and I got, and I know that's critical development, I would go pay for that to make sure that my kid is checking that box and filling that bucket. But it's like, oh, we did that in 1980. What's 2026, and your kid's on Snapchat? He's not on playing tetherball in the backyard. So
Oh,
let's
I
get with the
miss
times.
tetherball.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I love that game. I was
yeah. Well,
the recess champion.
for sure. And it's a silly, fun game, but it doesn't look like 12U baseball. But again, what is it doing? It's anticipation. It's timing. It's rhythm. And it's like, well, if we can do that on the play, you're not doing it on the playground, Tom. So let's see, let's fill it where we need to fill it. And again, I think, and I commend you for getting back into the younger crew, because here's the deal. There's always going to be the people that are just not going to do it, right? But it's not your objective or my objective to try to serve the masses. We can educate and we can advocate and do all those things, but it's like, some people are just not going to get it. And it's like, I don't think you and I should change who we are and knowing what's right to try to appease the masses, which again is how we got to this issue in the first place, where people are taking naive and gullible parents and saying, here's the path to mastery and let's just follow this path. None of these guys have any efficacy or proof of this. They trained one girl one time that ended up getting called up to a national team camp, and it's like, this is the way to go. When it's like, they didn't do anything to develop that girl other than take a picture with her, before she committed. Right. So it's just sad how, and it's like, who do you blame? Do you blame the parents for not doing the homework, or do you blame the sport coach who's encouraging all this volume, who's financially incentivized to do so? It's like, who's in the wrong? It's almost like you can lead a horse to water, right? But yeah, it's just it's unfortunate that it's painted to look this beautiful way, but then when we get to the ugly side of the truth that people want to look the other way on, it's clearly not, putting out what these people think they're going to get out of putting this much time and effort into it.
Yeah, totally. And you're right. I don't blame the parents as much as I used to, because I just know what they're seeing all the time
Exactly.
on Instagram. And I just feel like you and I and all these other strength coaches who have a background in long-term development and PE and movement skills, we are up against a beast.
Oh, for
And
sure. Oh,
it's
it's
like I
crazy.
was just getting discouraged that like parents were just brainwashed. They couldn't
Right.
really help it. And I think you're right. You just have to stay true to your values and what these kids need. And even if you have like one kid or two kids sign up and you can impact them, that's great. But
It's
maybe
worth it.
10 people are going to be like, well, screw you. I'm going to go down
Exactly.
to Joe Schmo and tap
Right.
my feet through
Right.
ladders.
And they do. And I used to like sit here and fight it. And oh my gosh, the science. And it's like, there can be truth out there, but not all truth is ready to be absorbed, and that's one of the things I've just had to come to terms with. It's like, I could sit down with you and in 10 minutes, I could break this down very, very simply. And I can go over the science in a way that you can understand. And I can really paint the picture for you. And then you could go have the same conversation with Coach Bro down the road who played a sport 17 years ago. He's got no certification, no knowledge. Pass feet, knees up, bro.
Oh no.
And again, having a conversation with that guy, you would learn, if you have any element of bandwidth in your brain, that this guy's full of it. But again, they got the rap music turned on, the Instagram videos are flying, the other kids doing it. It's $10 a session. Let's go grind, And so it's just like, there's always going to be that. And it's like, again, I always joke, I'm like, if I wanted to make the most money I could, I'd run a 6,000 square foot facility, cover it in turf. I'd throw cones on the ground like frisbees and charge $15 and a videographer, and I'd probably have 1,000 kids, right? But it's like,
Right.
to compromise my ethics to give them what will make me the most money at the expense of their. I don't know how these guys sleep at night, But it's, again, they don't even know that it's wrong. Icky shuffle looks like football, so let's call it, speed training. It's just it's a shame. It really, really is.
Worse yet, an icky shuffle where the kid's attached to a resistance band and the
Right,
parent.
exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly. I love how we try to convince people that closed predetermined drills are going to somehow transfer to an open, chaotic environment of sport. Unfortunately, like in soccer, you don't get to choose like what the defender is going to do and then do your cute little drill, where you're going through and I get it. Hey, if kids are outside on their own, doing some pass back work and things, but it's like these soccer trainers, they create this like county fair of nonsense. And it's like, I've never in my life seen a girl do a loop de loo and then kick it through a hurdle and then jump over the hurdle and spin around. It's almost like, how do you, how can you, I mean, I don't know anything about the piano, but if I saw somebody playing the piano and they were just slapping the key, I'd probably question, like, is this actually going to transfer? But again, it's just one of those things that it's so kind of like, I guess, well known and accustomed to. And I even see some of like the soccer training, like the warm ups, where again, a lot of these very like European style warm ups where they go through the ladders and they have their quick little shuffle drills and everything. It's like, we don't do that because it's right. It's like, that's tradition and that's the way that we've always done it. So let's just assume, that the beep test is going to transfer to on field soccer performance. You know what I mean? So it's almost like there's a lot of people that like are sticking to this, like, we've always done it this way. And sometimes those people are the hardest to change because again, they can get away with it because the consumers, they're forced to accept it.
Yeah. Do you ever look back to like your childhood and think, man, if I train the way some of these kids are training now, I would not have ended up the best athlete I could have.
For
We
sure. And it's
never
like,
trained like that.
ever. And then what's funny is I see a lot of it, and I was a very, very average athlete who, again, I was very well trained in a variety of different like athletic developmental practices with my father, who was a longtime college football coach, blah, blah, blah. And it was like all we did, and my dad didn't have the science, 20, 30 years ago, however old I am. And it was just fundamental. We ran sprints, we ran hills, we ran stairs, we lifted weights, we got stronger. I practiced my sport. And again, I went from a 5'10" white guy that probably didn't belong past JV to having a fairly, reputable career given the context of what I had at my disposal to be able to develop into. But another thing that I see is like I see all this nonsense training and all these kids have this objective to go to the next level, to go D1. Go look at Mallory's training at Auburn. Are they're not tethered to rubber bands and wearing whatever these little knee things are where it's like making a fake Achilles. It's just the craziest thing. It's like we do all this nonsense, and then the first time you're exposed to actual real training is the college level. What about that quote where it's like you need to act how or you need to prepare in a way that's going to prepare you for where you're going? It's like we do the exact opposite of that, and then we get to where we've gone to make it, and it's like you can talk to any, and but talking to any college strength, especially on the female side,
We've
you
had a
got a
lot
room,
on the show. We've had a
right?
lot of them on the show.
which
Yeah.
is which is important, I think, to hear those messages. But if you've got a room of 30 girls, or let's just call it 10 incoming freshmen, there might be one or maybe two that have been exposed to real training. A lot of them have gone to soccer training and things like that with the bands and doing lateral bounds with a 2-pound med ball and what, which isn't a bad exercise, but very few of them have been through a progression based strength and conditioning program. And again, a lot of those girls too have had some of those soft tissue injuries and they've been through rehab and they've gone through the gambit. It's almost like, when are we going to catch on to say that, hey, not all injury is preventable, obviously, but if we're seeing the injury rates at the rates that we're seeing them and we're not adjusting our behavior, are we just going to pray against bad luck, or are we going to recognize what's going on and maybe adjust our plan of attack to improve performance? But again, I believe we're a very reactive society that says, hey, let's just follow the crowd and do what everybody else is doing. Let's try to escape around this whole injury thing, and then if it happens, we'll throw our hands in the air and blame bad luck. We'll go to PT, we'll talk about the like, this is a comeback story, and it's like there's no beauty in ignoring the fundamentals of developing as a human being and as an athlete, incurring some of the, it's not disorder, it's order. You expose tissues that are ill prepared to excessive demands. Like, it's science. It's going to break down eventually. Like, there's no honor in like being the tough guy with that. But again, unfortunately, they're doing it, and the parents are so washed because again, that's all they see. and we just fall in line because Sarah's going to get left behind if we don't copy the same exact thing that every other girl's doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough.
It's interesting you talk about what these strength coaches at the D1 level are doing. It's just the fundamentals
Right.
of strength and power and speed. And we've had Mallory on, we've had the women's soccer Mississippi State strength coach on, we've had Stanford, UNC, we've had like the big dog strength
Right.
coaches on. And they're doing just your pull-ups,
Yeah.
your hex bar deadlifts, slowly progressing the weight over time, not doing anything crazy. And it's just so interesting. Parents are set on that like D1 dream, but all
Right.
the training they're doing is the exact opposite of what the girl's going to
Yeah.
experience in college. And I would also
Exactly.
say in the college programs, they're doing that play-based agility work in the off
For
season. They're doing a
sure.
lot of reactive stuff that transfers to soccer.
100%.
It's
100%.
rarely rehearsed unless, someone really needs help with maybe their sprint mechanics and there's some glaring
Sure.
mistakes, but overall, it's the fundamentals, and it's just funny that you have 8-year-olds on Instagram doing the wildest exercises and rehearsed drills and no progression or thought behind it, and it's like, that's not what they're gonna do
Right.
at
Right.
the next
But
level.
it's for the parents. The parents can say that like my kid's got the nuance trainer and we're doing this and you're not doing it's all a show, you know what I mean? Because it's like at the end of the day, you would it wouldn't take anybody. I mean, if we look at like the laws of dynamic correspondence, where basically like how does the training transfer to the sport? Again, it's like you have all these implements and all of these things on the ground. It's like, first of all, none of those are there in sport, you know. So to me, this whole sport specific training narrative, like when I was growing up, we used to just call that practice. You know, if I was wanting sport specific training, I would practice the demands of my sport the way that the sport is going to be played, you know. And now I'm seeing obviously some of these girls that are in sandboxes doing the sand training and this and that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if your goal is power explosion and first step quickness, when you're in a sandbox, you're dissipating ground forces. So two things are happening. Not only is the game you play not being played in a sandbox, you're destroying your ability to produce force because the ground beneath you is coming out from itself. You know, so I'm like, yeah, it looks cool and the music's on and this, and we can like try to convince ourselves that like there's an element of like balance and blah 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 ankle strength, but again, it's all just eyewash show that is just trying to level up from the next girl. Oh, well, you only see your skills trainer 17 times a week. Like I'm going 20. And now let's pull them out of school. Now I'm not kidding. I train plenty of girls that they do, and I'm not like telling a parent what to do with their schooling, but they'll do like a hybrid school where they only go to school twice a week and they do online school, but so they can do even more soccer training. And it's like, we don't have time for 2 hours a week of strength and conditioning, but 75 hours of doing the same soccer drills and showcasing the same skill sets and placing more stress on those ill-prepared tissues is the answer. Explain to me how that makes any, and I'm an idiot, right? But like, explain to me how that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a big issue I see. I work with a lot of female athletes who have patellar tendon pain in the knee, Osgood-Schlatter, the growing pains,
Right.
quad partial tears. And I always ask them, do you have a background in strength training? And how many hours a week are you doing sport specific work?
Sure.
And it's always zero strength training
Right.
and like 14 hours of sport specific
Exactly.
work and more wear and tear on the muscles and joints and ligaments. And it's universal. And I
Right.
see it all the time. And obviously it's evidence backed, but
Right.
anecdotally, it's a big problem. And I always tell parents, you have to balance out the strength development, the movement quality with the sport specific.
For sure.
Otherwise, you are taking a gamble with your daughter's body and her injury risk. And not just overuse. ACL tears are a big risk with that because we're finding that they are a result of overuse of the sport specific and not having that foundation
For
to
sure.
play on. So Yeah, it's really crazy, but some people get it after they go through something hard, and that's what I
100%.
don't want. Like I don't want you to learn the hard way.
Right. You don't have to, and it's like, again, sometimes that experience is the best teacher, but you're exactly right. It's like, to me, some of the best lessons, and I've screwed up and I've made mistakes, but, I paid attention to those older guys that have, some of those, scars, so to speak. And again, I don't want to say that I'm not going to put myself to the fire and experience some things and learn the lessons that you have to learn by doing it. But I've also learned for a lot of people who have already done it, and their wisdom can be bestowed upon me to where I don't have to make the same mistakes. As it's not a badge of honor to, like, if my father is a business owner and messed up A, B, and C, and even though he's in a different field than I am, excuse me, if I can't leverage some of the value from some of his mistakes and I repeat the same mistakes, I don't think that's wisdom. I think that's ignorance. You know what I mean? So it's almost like the data's here. You can see it. You can pretend that you are special and can avoid it. Or, and this is the funny part, it's very, very minimal amount of time commitments to be able to decrease the percentage of the likelihood of some of these things happening. We're not asking you to quit playing soccer. We're not asking you to strength train 50 times a month. It's 8 hours a month, twice a week, to strengthen your muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and improve your confidence between your ears. This isn't rocket science, so it's just unfortunate.
That's such a good perspective. We're not asking that much, to be
it's,
honest. It's
it, it's crazy. You play on your phone 7 hours a day. All right. So that's 35 hours, or 50 hours a week. We're asking for a fraction of that to protect yourself. Like, is that it? Like, what do we, you can still watch all the Netflix. You can still go to your soccer training. You can do all the things. But again, we're here to minimize the risk and increase the confidence and performance. And we don't have time. That's insane to me.
yeah,
It's
it's crazy. Yeah, and you mentioned 2 times a week. I think that's ideal and optimal for people. I have some who will do once a week the whole year at least, and then
right,
in
which
the
is
summer up that. I'd rather that than you train for a month and then I don't see you for the rest of the year,
for
because
sure.
there has to be that consistency to get those strength and speed adaptations. And I think you wrote a Substack on drop-in sessions. Was that you?
Yes,
Yeah, I don't do drop-in sessions anymore. That was like a rookie mistake in my first
for
year of
sure.
coaching. Do you do them?
So no, we got rid
Not
of them entirely. And
yeah.
again, and I'll just to give it a little bit of background on that, just from a standpoint of, I get it from the money grab perspective. It's nice for Sarah to have practice canceled and she can drop into a session. You make a quick 25 bucks, great. But as far as, like, actually, again, to what you just mentioned, all of our training is progression based. So to just come in on a random Tuesday and go through the workout, you can feel good about yourself for getting sweaty and I got stronger, but that's not actually going to do anything to help you. And I know that my reputation is on the backs of my athletes, to where I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never had an athlete get injured. But statistically speaking, those who do prioritize some of this preparation based training tend to see less injuries. I don't want to just spurt somebody in here, spurt somebody in there, and then all of a sudden, they're associated with my program. And now that, hey, that Zingler guy was training her and she got injured and this and that. And then on top of it, too, I just found that sometimes when you offer that to people, you deal with a crowd that at my age, I don't really care to deal with anymore, where it's that lowly a commitment. They want a discount, they're late paying, they do all this. We run a very simple but tight ship. It's
Yeah.
all month to month based training. I want to give the kids the minimal effective dose, which is what we have found to be twice per week. We have some that train 3 to 4. But again, if we can get 8 sessions a month, 12 months a year over the course of 6 years, let's just call it seventh grade to their senior year in high school, not only do I know that we can improve their outputs and their performance, I think building the lifelong habit at a young age of being able to expose yourself to voluntary stress, i.e., training, is only going to serve them in life. So I've never seen anybody who's invested in the training for the long haul, even if they've never gone on to play college sports, it be a net negative for them, because as they go to college and they're just regular students and they're going to the gym twice a week, and then they turn 30 years old and they're still having fitness a part of their life. Like, it's like the investment, like, we can remove sports from everything that we're doing and the investment is still justified, because at the end of the day, you're going to need health and fitness a lot longer than you're going to need a soccer ball to maintain the quality of your life. So that's where I look at it from a kind of a double-edged sword perspective. Oh, well, my kid doesn't want to play college. Then I would argue, I think she needs this training even more, because if she's not
Yes.
going to have an accountability stimulus, i.e., sport, beyond her time in high school, let's use this valuable time to build quality habits that she can take with her beyond the game. So it's one of those things that I believe, every success in my life has come from not what was easy or most convenient, but I dedicated myself to something I wasn't very good at, and I got a little bit better and better at it over time. And then I stack up a bunch of those small wins, and then all of a sudden something becomes something. So that's why, to round it back in, we don't really do the drop in, because we're looking for more of a commitment. I'd rather have 10 committed than 100 dabblers. That's just how I feel.
I 100% agree. Yeah, and drop-ins, like you said, they're not true development. It's just
No.
this false idea, oh, like I'm kind of getting better or feeling something if I show up once a month, but you're
Right.
not moving the needle and you're not improving your strength relative to your body weight. You're not getting
Sure.
better speed numbers. I mean, it's just I agree with you. It's a big problem, the drop-in sessions, and a lot of people still do it because like you said, it's easy. You just make a quick buck. And
Right.
if you have like 50 kids who are drop-ins, that is a lot of
For
money.
sure, for sure.
But
And
it's like,
it's
I'm not willing to risk their lack of results for my
amen.
reputation either, because I've found, and I don't know if you found this like when you did the drop-ins, but they were the most flaky. They would always cancel last minute. And
For
then they
sure.
blamed me for their lack of results. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore
Right.
because you're not showing up.
For sure. It's that old quote where it's like, don't blame somebody else, for the results you didn't get, for the work you didn't do. And that's one of those where it's just like, you have too much of a standing in the training community. And it's not to sit here and place anybody on a pedestal, but in my opinion, once you've been in this game long enough, you don't have to cower to the masses and try to break that down. That's who does the drop-ins. And I'll just be frank with you, it's those 19, 20, 21-year old speed and agility coach. In 2 years they're out of the industry. Or it's that gym down the road that's constantly recycling trainers, because again, on the business side of it, I feel that it's very difficult to make a sustainable business model out of getting lucky 30 times a year where 50 show up. And then this is the other argument that I make to the parents. So, hey, does the gym your kid go to, do they do drop-ins? Yeah, all the time. There's drop-ins every week. Well, think about the training for those kids who are committed to that program. They're not getting a progression-based training program. They're getting a drop-in that coach who's driving to the gym is making up on the fly. All right, ladder drill. We'll do a little bit of like lateral quickness. We'll do some band speed. They're not writing a program for these kids. Those kids are getting drop-in quality sessions. If they're going 2 or 3 times a week, they're not getting anything that's building. So these parents are paying for, again, a non-periodized, non-organized, and they call it speed and agility, right? But what is it really? It's directionless conditioning, right? Because again, if the kid is actually speed training, there's a lot of rest involved in speed training. But you go to any one of these drop-ins, the kids come back to the car covered in sweat, tongue hanging out of their mouth. We got faster today, Mom. No, you didn't, Johnny. You got tired. You got tired. But again, the mom sees sweat, breathing heavy, grind, speed, and agility. It's all just a show. And it's unfortunate that, again, people they just don't know.
That is a really good point that it does hold the committed athletes back
It
because
does,
they're just getting the random circuit for the day
for
because it kind of
sure.
caters to all coming in, the drop in, the committed athlete.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's really scary too because there's kids who want to be there and there's kids who show up every single week and they've done it for many years. So
Right,
that's
right.
pretty crazy when you put it that way.
Yeah, and listen, I'm all about kids being active and exercising. And is a drop-in speed agility class the worst thing in the world? No, it's not. I'd rather see a kid moving his limbs than sitting on the couch. But at the very same time, when we know that, especially in this youth sports world, how valuable time is, and when we look at the commitments and the overcommitments of people, if we're not judiciously using our time in a performance setting, just going and sweating and running around for an hour is a horrible misuse of time. And then you stack on a lot of these speed and agility programs. They try to make it look like the sport. And I look at it like this: they've already have way too much volume on their ankles and their knees. They're already doing too much change of directions. The tendons and ligaments aren't, and now the training that we do, we're just going to feed them more of what they're already doing too much of, And then the strength training is a booty band or whatever. They do a
Oh,
couple
no.
of glute bridges, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like, goodness gracious. But
Yeah. Oh,
that's
it's so true. Yeah, the volume is something to consider as well, because if the training is the kid constantly going da 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 da, like
right,
running through
right,
stuff, it's like
right.
they're already having that much
E-
stress
e-
on their muscles and joints. So
Exactly. So let's just add more to it. But no,
yeah, it's crazy. Now, in terms of, so you do a lot of play based training and just variety of movement. I've seen all of your speed stuff, with really great intensity and then long rest. And then for like traditional like lifts, what are you guys mainly focusing on?
yeah, so I do a lot of, again, the core lifts. We'll do a lot of squats, benches, deadlifts, single leg work. But again, something I've kind of adapted over time is, we do a lot of, I would say, our main strength movements. I really like high box squats, and a lot of people on social media will see that and scream at you that full range of motion is the best way, and this and that, blah blah blah. But what I've done and what I've learned is I've used strength kind of in the context of just like global strength. I don't really care how much somebody can squat. I want to enhance their ability to produce more force. So it's like, what are the simplest ways I can go about increasing somebody's ability to produce force? So what we found with a lot of these higher box squats, that they're not very hard to accomplish. They're not very taxing on the body because obviously you're not traveling through full ranges of motion. And again, the kids, I view everything like my biggest key performance indicators are their sprints and their jumps. I like to see their sprint times decrease and their jumps increase. And then I know what we're doing is working without having to do a 1 rep squat max, ass to grass, so to speak. So we really like to do and program, some of those, I call them the core lifts, but the variations of the core lifts. We do a lot of trap bar deadlifts. We do a lot of like block bench presses for upper body strength. I really like the landmines because I think you can put kids in better, simpler positions. But then obviously also we're really big on the single leg work as well. We do a lot of lunges and split squats, isometrics as well. I think it's very, very good for kids to learn how to own positions. Not a very big Olympic lifting guy, and it's not because I dislike them. I think they're fantastic. I just think, again, when we're looking at a kid's week and how much he's got slammed into a week or how much he's got slammed into a week, allocating bandwidth into teaching an entirely different sport on top of what they've already got going on. As much as a hang clean is a great exercise because you have an explosive output with a deceleration, I'll program something like a dumbbell loaded box jump. So that way, again, is it the same thing as a hang clean? No, but we're getting the triple extension, we're getting the deceleration. So we're mimicking some of the qualities that some of those more quote advanced lifts might elicit in something I can teach you in 5 minutes. So it's one of those things that, again, I try to build my programming based on this isn't their only thing. If I had access to these kids 4 days a week and they didn't have anything else going on, I would probably be a bit more nuanced with it. But now I look at it like I'm very lucky if I get them twice a week. So I want to get the speed adaptation. I want to get the jump adaptation. I want to get the strength. I want to get the capacity. So it's almost like I don't think you'll ever find an ideal training program, but I'm trying to check the most boxes without with pouring out the least amount of water, if that makes sense, because again, I can say they're doing too much soccer volume or they're doing too much of this. But again, stress is just stress. It's all in one bucket. So if I sit here and overfill it because I think their soccer coach is bad, that doesn't serve the kid. So it's almost just like giving them those short spurts of quality training that isn't going to dump on top of what they're already doing the too much of. So it's kind of how I build it out.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And I agree with the Olympic lifts. Not too big into them either for like who we work with. It just
Right,
doesn't seem bang for buck with the time we have,
right,
and like you said, you can just do the plyos and
right,
do them right and still get a great benefit from them. And the box
100%.
squats I'm being more sold on now. I used to be one of those full range people,
Right,
but now I'm
right,
like, there's some girls who are taller,
right.
long torsos where if you go full range, they're falling forward and it doesn't seem ideal. Have you seen that with some mechanics of your athletes where you're just like, it's better they're on a box?
Right, 100%. And that's exactly it too. And here's the thing, it's not that I'm unwilling to put the work in to fix those things. You and I, if we had unlimited access to a kid, we can fix the ankle mobility issue. We can fix. But again, it's our job to give the kids a training adaptation. So it's not that I'm unwilling to take the time, but if I know that I'm only going to have this girl for 6 months and it's going to be twice a week, okay, so I got 40 sessions with this girl plus or minus. I can take 12 sessions trying to fix everything under the sun when in reality we know that we're always going to fall back to our natural ways of moving. Or I can raise the box for her, I can give her a strength adaptation. And then one of my favorite things to do, and we do this all the time, is we might do our main strength work. Let's just call it 3 sets of 3 of a high box squat. And then I'll give her a kettlebell, a 35, 50 pound kettlebell. We'll go heel elevated squat. She can sink her freaking goblet squats to the floor. Her torso stays upright. So what did I do? I gave her a max strength stimulus in a very safe environment with that higher box. And then now we're getting the volume from that full range of motion, more of a regressed squat variation, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
not that I disagree with obviously the full range. I definitely think the body is designed to travel through full ranges of motion. Just looking at it from the context of like, am I trying to help her become a better soccer player or a better weightlifter? If weightlifting was her sport, hey, now we have to train in a way that the sport demands. But having never seen a barbell on a soccer field, I'm not going to live and die by what Jimmy Squatman 3000 says on Instagram. You know what I mean? So it's just adapting it to what your demographic needs, in my opinion, which for soccer players and athletes in general, I use the term soccer just because obviously that's a lot of the girls we work with as well. But it's like they need strength, they need explosivity, they need power, they need to be able to change direction, and they need physical resilience. So if I can make a program that cover those 5 bases, I'm not getting married to any which exercise, because what might be great for the 5'2", 90-pound girl who has a lifting background could be horrendous for a 6'2" keeper who can't, hinge, right? So it's just kind of adapting it to serve the individual. I always say people don't have to meet me where I'm at. My goal is to meet them where they're at. And I will modify and adapt programming to benefit you, not this is the Zingler way and we do it like this, so it's like, it's about service. And I think that's important, given what is every day to me and you. Sarah's never even thought weightlifting, squat muscle, soccer, like it's so foreign to them. But a lot of times we think that this is our world, that they are just there. They love it like we do. They don't. They want to play. So.
I love it. Yeah, and it's far, far from a generalized workout where everyone's doing the same thing. And how do you track that? Do you use like Team Builder or a platform, or do you print out programs for kids? What do you do?
So we're printout. I just
Still
like,
print out.
yeah, and
Nice.
I love it only because it's like, and I'll tell you why. And I know it's not the most efficient way, but it's like in this era with kids on their phones and checking tablets and this and that, it's my way to, again, are they going to check their phones during the workout? Yes, but it's a way that I can kind of encourage them to put the phones up, and it forces them to kind of intermingle a little bit more. The coaches at my gym, it drives the interaction too, because they're communicating on what they have next. So instead of just looking at their phone and going and doing it, it's forced communication. And I think too, we use what's called a skeleton model, where basically if I had a 6th grade kid and a senior in college, they might follow the same program in the context of the exercise selection. And what I mean by skeleton, it might say squat on the sheet. And now that might be a safety bar squat against bands for the college kid. That might mean body weight goblets or body weight squat to a box for the 6th grader. Now we get into single leg. All right, that might be barbell rear elevated split squat for the college kid. That might be a single leg isometric hold, hand supported isometric hold. So it allows us to kind of have like, obviously, like our meat and potatoes, so to speak. So that way we know, despite who shows up on that given day, And everybody, to your point, has their own program. We're not a gym where it's like, oh, you show up today, you're just following what's on the whiteboard. But we have the generalized thesis, if you will, of this is how we're going to operate. And then we're able to add and subtract progressions and regressions based on the competency of the individual. And I think it does a great job of, it allows everybody to feel together. You know, yesterday we had a college kid, high level athlete in there, and he had to come to a later session. And there was a seventh grader in there, and the workouts are not the same. The outputs aren't the same. But, you know, one of the younger boys was like, hey, you're doing your lunges too. Now, granted, he was doing, you know, a barbell lunge with 225, and the other kid's got 10 pounds, but you feel a part of it. And I
Yeah.
just think from a cultural standpoint, it's been neat to kind of have those connections. And then from a coaching standpoint, instead of trying to pull stuff out of my ass and random, you know, we've already got the blueprint pretty much put together. Now I can invest in my relationship with you and not rear foot, band, tether, you know, I'm not just spitting, you know, exercises at you. So
Yeah.
it's old school in its application, but it works for us. You know, we've got multiple coaches on the floor too, which obviously helps from a standpoint of, you know, giving the prescriptions. You know, we might have a coach that's on the, we call them day one kids, meaning like this is their first day of the week. Well, if today's Wednesday or Thursday, this might be the first day of the week that we see Jessica. So now she's still going to be on day one, where if Ryan is there and this is his third day, he's on day three. So I kind of compartmentalize it to where we can run a group. But again, we got this group running, you know, their day one program. This is day three. So as much as it might look like chaos from the outside, it's fairly organized internally.
Yeah, I love that. And man, you're kind of convincing me to bring out like the printed programs again. Like
Yeah,
I love them because it's just I don't know, I just feel there's just something about writing down your stuff and then
for
talking to the
sure.
coach and but we do have a phone box in our gym
Oh,
where
awesome. I love
they
that.
just put the phones in and then they write in their stuff on my desktop
Oh,
because
good.
we used to have them use their phones
Right.
and they would write in, okay, here's what I did for deadlift. And then Snapchat pops up. And I'm like, I can't do this
For
anymore.
sure.
You guys are doing it on my touch screen. I can't have your notifications flying every which way.
That's a wonderful idea, though. And I appreciate you bringing that up because, like, we have a couple of iPads in the gym that run the
Mhm.
music and do all this. And it was like,
Mhm.
that might be a good way because, admittedly, one of the downfalls is, you know, you ask the girl to go over there and, you know, fill in her numbers, and she does. And the boy below her wants to draw a penis on the programming sheet and all the whole thing. So, like, that is some of the issues that we run into working with kids. Whereas if they built a habit with a computer or touchscreen
Mhm.
now you can go in and just throw it in there without giving them access to, hey, go write down 225x3. You know, you got 225 for 3 reps. Now I'm going to Snapchat my boyfriend in between the thing. And then now it becomes a 10-minute ordeal. And then now she brings
Yeah.
the other girl over that's like, did you hear? And then we just got off track, you know? So,
Yeah. It was really bad. And, you know, when they're resting in between sets, I don't want that stimulation
oh, for
constantly.
sure, for
So
sure, for
that was a
sure.
big issue as well. And I want them resting in between sets and talking to the other kids or
Exactly.
talking to me. So yeah, we have a box that says phones. As soon as you get in, put your phone in the box. You cannot touch it till the session's
I
over.
love it. Do you get kickback on that? Do you ever get kids that are like, I need to text? And I'm sure you have, obviously, if there's an emergency or something, there's ways to go about it. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'd gotten from some parents like, oh, well, you know, they need to have their phone in their pocket at all times. Like, no, they don't, you know, and it's like, and now
No, no.
I
The
say that, and it's like those
parents
kids,
like the phone box. They
right? I
like
love
it.
that.
They're like,
Yeah.
well,
Cause
because if you think about it, this is probably the only hour of their day they're
where they don't
not
have it.
on it.
Amen. Right. I
So
love it.
that's kind of in the back of my head. And the kids like it now a lot. Like at the end of the session, they'll say, wow, I almost forgot about my phone. I'm like,
Right.
perfect. Like you
That's the
don't,
way it should. Yeah.
yeah, you don't need it.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. I need to. And our kids are very, very good about it. And obviously, if there's somebody that's got to go call their mom or whatever, hey, go do whatever you need to do. But it's funny that you say that because it's like the people that gave me flack about, well, my kid needs this, they never lasted in our program anyway. You know what I mean? It's almost
Exactly.
like that's the kind of like now I'm bending to like the very few. It's like, come on, man. You know, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
I like the phone box, and I'll have to consider obviously the touch screen. I'll take all the apps off of it. I don't want them seeing my notifications, their
Yeah, no,
notifications.
no, just
Go in, hammer your stuff, and get to your next one, you know?
yeah,
So,
exactly. I love it. Now, I do want to ask about confidence. Do you
yeah.
think that this lack of play and true physical development is really ruining confidence? Because oftentimes when parents come to me with their daughters, they tell me she has no confidence on the field. And I can't help but think, what did she do in her childhood? Did she have a lot of experiences and play and express her creativity? Like, do you think this is contributing to the loss in confidence in kids?
Without question. And I'll tell you why. I think of it, very, very simply. When I was growing up, and again, I have great parents, but it was like I remember just even as a young, there was like, yes, there was rules and obviously discipline and things, but like we were going outside, we were playing, we were running around. It was just fun. In the summer, we went to the pool, we went swimming. I didn't have 17 practices. We just played and grow, and I learned what I could do, what I couldn't do. My friends were on the skateboard. I was more of a swimming guy. Like we just played. And now we axe a lot of that stuff. And because we are trying as parents, and I'm speaking for the masses, we're trying to like jumpstart their competitive process, we're overcoming or we're jumping over one of those major emotional pillars of development, which is expression and free play and being creative. And we're throwing them into these boxes with this competitive nature of sport. You need to see your hitting instructor. You need to see your pitching instructor, instructor. And again, parents think this: I'm doing this because I want you to be the best you can be. But again, a kid doesn't receive that like a 40-year-old mom or dad might receive that. A kid receives that as, I know my mom's paying for this. I know this is about my baseball performance. I know that this has to do with me becoming, this person that my mom wants me to be, not even who I want to be. So right from the gate, we're throwing kids into a fire where it becomes a job, almost this obligation to where it's like, I better or else. And now what happens in not only sport and life, but if you have this internal fear driven into you that the love that I get from my parents or peers is predicated on my performance, and people can say, well, I don't want that for my kid. I just want him to be happy. Well, if you just want him to be happy, you wouldn't sit here and tie his identity, right, to his outcome performance in a sport, So I see it so frequently that, again, a lot of these kids at such a young age are thrown into this fire. And again, parents on one side, I want what's best for you. Child on the other side doesn't receive it like that. Child on the other side says, Mom, this is important to mom or dad. This is why they're encouraging me to do all of this. I'm assuming that, my value comes from how I play in this environment. And that's why, again, the kids are timid. Whereas, again, go watch a soccer game on a Saturday at one of these big soccer parks, and you'll see kids having freaking anxiety attacks, tightening up, and it's a mess. Now go watch them play 3v3 small field on the backfields of a local school where they're just having fun with a Bluetooth speaker on. Why is Sarah? She's great in those environments, because again, the absence of the pressure, and she can play and have fun and express herself. So again, it's I'm not against high level competition or anything like that. But what I'm against is jumping over a major contributor to a child's confidence, which again is the free expression. It's learning themselves. It's becoming who they are. It's developing passions that are natural to them, not I played football, so my kid's going to play football in second grade, So that's a real challenge. And I think it's a disconnect from parents. And again, I fundamentally believe that all parents want what's best for their kids. At least most of them do. They just don't know how to go about that because they're being eluded to follow what everybody else is doing. And again, why are we dealing with the kids that more now today than any other time in human history are on ADHD medications or on anti-anxiety and depression medications? What's changed? We've got more resources, we've got better technology. Why are we going backwards in kind of the emotional development department despite having all the information? And I really think it is stemming from kids not being able to be kids because parents are trying to hardwire them into robots. And when they're not being beat over the head in their sport, it's 4.0 GPA or else. Did you go to SAT prep? What are your scores? Did you get into the in-state school? It's again like what are we teaching the kids? And I'm all for education and academics, but at the very same time, if I create a robotic athlete and a wizard of a kid who's scared of his own shadow, did I set them up and prepare them for life? I don't think so.
It really runs deep, doesn't it?
It's crazy. It's yeah,
Yeah,
it's unfortunate
yeah, and you're right. It's the skipping over of that developmental time, before age 12, like pre-puberty, where they need to explore and
for
they need
sure.
to problem solve and also take risks without the fear of, "Oh, I'm making a mistake because mom's over there watching me with my one-on-one trainer at age 8."
Exactly. And
That's
sitting there
that's the
like this,
problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I just learned so much. And again, I'm a young father. I've got my 6-year-old boy had the best soccer game of his life last year, and I was so pumped after the game. And I was like, man, what was your favorite part about this? And he's like, the snacks. And I'm like, all right, I gotta get back. I scored 3 goals, and it's like 4v4, no keeper, just kicking around, just little kid stuff. But then I was like, all right, like here I am valuing his performance and he did this and it was great. And it's like just snacks. You know what I mean? And it's like that was so natural and pure. And then it's like now, and this is an issue that I'm having with him. This is a little bit off course, but it's like he he's elevated for his little 6-year-old rec league. And I'd love to see him experience like the next level a little bit, just so that way the coaching is a little bit more there and he's learning the game a little bit more. But we go from one practice a week to one game on the weekend. Now the next thing, the next league or whatever, it's 4 practices a week and then 2 games in different locations on the weekends. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
Wait, for
yeah,
6-year-old soccer?
yeah, a 6-year-old, yeah. Well, the next like competitive tier, the rec tier stays low. But again, what's happening is the quality of the coach, because we're basically demonizing the rec element of sport, and we're trying to segue into this more advanced, specialization route. And now I'm thinking, like, gosh, I want him to continue. I love the game. I want him to continue playing. I'm not willing to, give up that much time because I want him doing gymnastics and I want him doing jujitsu and I want him to try flag football and do these other things. So it's almost unfortunate that it's like we're earlier and earlier segueing kids into this more, specific environment versus like, and I don't think a kid needs to play 3 different sports at one given time of the year, but I think to have an off season and do the next thing and do the next thing. But it's almost like we're setting it up to where if you don't jump on board, you and I know that you won't be left behind. But if you don't know that you won't, and you're kind of like conditioned to follow, it's really really challenging for parents to, what do I do.
Yeah, that's really crazy. I'm seeing more of that. The young ones' parents, like the under 8s are being preyed on for this next level after rec.
For
And it's
sure,
like
for
if you
sure.
don't do that at age 6, you won't be on the best team at age 14 or you won't get recruited to play in
Right.
college. And you and I know that's bullshit,
For
but
sure. Yeah, yeah. And I laugh and I just think, like, right now there's some 9-year-old in Mexico who comes from nothing. He doesn't even have shoes on. He's playing soccer on a dirt field using a goal that doesn't have a net, who's going to end up signing $1 million contract one day. But my kid that has custom shin guards, you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell are we doing? So it's just, it's funny how, and I see it across all
and
sports,
parents are paying
you know.
$10,000 a year for travel clubs.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And meanwhile, some kid's using a 2x4 as a baseball bat. And that same kid whose dad spent 10 grand on club baseball, he's going to buy the jersey of the kid in Mexico playing with a 2x4. So it's
right.
funny how,
Yeah,
how
we're
it all,
spending like
yeah,
$100 an hour for pitching
yeah,
lessons. Like,
exactly. Go out to the field and throw, and you'll figure out the other mechanic stuff later. And again, that's another reason I think the injuries too. It's like instead of just like letting their bodies explore and figure out how they move and to throw the baseball naturally, kids are learning. This is off topic, but they're learning how to pitch a baseball before they learn how to throw a baseball. And then it's like there's a throwing mechanic. Obviously, pitching is obviously a form of throwing, right? But instead of just like learning the natural rhythmic way to throw something, they're being taught, very robotically at these young ages before the body is developed. how to pitch. Mind you, the ball is too big for their hands, but they're not going to tell you that, so it's crazy how sometimes these like robotic elements, and people are like, well, Ray, you train your 6-year-old son, and he's like, he's so technically. I teach no technique. I'm just get on the gas and go. And naturally, the human body sometimes it's always going to be perfect, but you could probably attest to this. If given the right environment, it will self-organize to come into itself. That pretty good form. We're designed to move. A lot of times we get older and we stop moving, and that's why people experience the troubles that they do today. But this whole like over coaching idea does nothing but contribute to some of the mess that we run into later. And then now, that's why I always say we got far better sports players today than we do athletes, because again, they're conditioned for sport at such a young age. But you have to have the base of athleticism first. That's why a lot of these guys they'll never reach their potential, or they'll peak early, because why? Their physical development, they couldn't keep up with their specific potential. They ran out of bandwidth, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
It's so true. There is a lot of overcoaching going on for the younger kids, and it ends up just causing more harm than good. And baseball is actually the biggest disaster of all. I mean, so my husband was a baseball player, and he played at Ole Miss, and he was one of the top recruits in high school. He went to IMG Academy, then got drafted with the Dodgers. And when he was 6, 7 years old, he said that he would go in the backyard with grandpa, and grandpa would be like, all right, throw it as hard as you can over our 12-foot fence. And he would throw the ball,
right.
And he was just developing those movement skills. No, like, right. Oh, you need to, hold the ball here and internal rotation.
Exactly.
And like by the time he got into high school, I mean, his velocity was incredible, but I just really think people need to take this seriously, that we have to keep that play and that childhood young. We can't skip over it. If there's anything you get from this conversation, please don't skip over that play, whether you do it yourself with your own kids or you have a performance coach who understands PE and long-term athletic development over this nonsense you see on social media that's rehearsed, robotic, and just overcoached.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I love it.
Is there any final words you would give the parents listening?
You just nailed it. And something that I'll wrap it up with this is, as a sports performance guy who's definitely into all the high levels of training and analytics, I really had to check myself even as a sports performance coach, because it's like you and I can write really good programs and we understand obviously like periodization and how to design this and that. But what I found, and where I had to check myself, is I was writing programs that weren't inappropriate for middle school or high school athletes, but I had to regress a lot of them, because a lot of what you and I and kids got 10, 15 years ago, they didn't have those fundamentals or those foundations. So again, I personally have lowered the rigor of the training. Obviously, I want to keep it intense, but again, kids today don't have the backgrounds, and the more time parents can invest in their kids into unstructured play and encouraging high output and effort, it's far easier to refine what you have access to when you're older and developed than it is to not have that basis of development that you can't draw upon. So again, I guess the final message would be this, we need to build the engine, right, before we start worrying about the window dressing.
Oh, that's such a great place to end. This has been so much fun, and I'm sure we might have more topics. Maybe you'll come back on. Who knows?
Absolutely. I'd love it.
I often have repeat guests, so I'm sure we'll come up with something. But for those of you who are in or near Marietta, Georgia, please check out Ray's gym and start training. I can promise you just the programs in place for youth development are incredible, and you really need to find the right coach for your kid. I also have a running list of other coaches across the country. If you need help in your area, California, New York, New Jersey, Colorado, we have people all over who are doing it right for kids. That they do exist, but you just have to do your research. So Thank you, Ray. This was awesome, and I'll see everyone next time.